afternoon, Rotarians.
Good afternoon, Tim.
Welcome to the December 11th, another nice, brisk December day here in Iowa, the December 11th meeting of the Rotary Club of Des Moines. I'm your president, Tim Lilowitz. Thank you to our greeters today, Matt Kiernan and Randy Worth, for both agreeing to greet. Appreciate that. Thank you, guys. A little bit of a change up today. We do not have a moment of inspiration, and I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and four-way test, but I wanted to spend a moment to remember one of our own that passed this week, Jim Vickery. Jim passed away on Saturday, surrounded by his family, including our former member, Sharon Vickery. Jim was a member of this club for 52 years and held honorary member status and held perfect attendance for 45 of those 52 years. He was club president in 1981, 1982, and went on to serve as a district governor in 1996 and 1997. So Jim's full obituary was included in our newsletter this week that went out. If you didn't see it, there will be a private funeral service and internment. A celebration of Jim's life will be announced at a future date. So I just wanted to say that our thoughts obviously are with Sharon and the rest of his family and friends. And so please join me in a moment of silence for a great Rotarian, Jim Vickery. Thank you. So with that, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Four-way test.
Yeah, that's it. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the four-way test.
The truth is fair to all concerned, will build goodwill and better friendships, will be beneficial to all concerned.
Now let's greet our fellow Rotarians.
Ellen Bennett.
How are you?
Good to see you. Good to see you again. Never know. This might just wear him around. Graham. How are you? Good. Good to see you. Steve, nice to see you. How are you? Good. Straight shot.
All right, returning to our seats. As we do always, we will announce the guests that are with us today. And so for guests, I will announce your name. Please just stand and remain standing. There's just three of you here today while I call you, and then we'll greet you as a group. So first off is Andy Ireland with Flynn Wright, who is a guest of Kevin Kassier. And then we have Henry Lee with Boyd Jones, who is a guest of Nakona Dayton. And then finally, Ellen Bennett with Principal and the daughter of our own Scott Bennett. Thank you guys for joining us. Next is our Where in the World is Club 27 for our guests. The Rotary Club of Des Moines is the 27th club of over 36,000 Rotary clubs in the world founded. We have a couple of pictures. We don't have Doug Saltzgaver here, so he's finally not submitted a picture for the first time in several months. We have Michael Wolnerman, who was in Cleveland and found this beautiful Rotary monument. So thank you, Michael, for sending that in. And then we also have Will Brown, who was recently traveled to Marco Island while the rest of us were freezing to death and buried under snow. So as punishment, we put Will on the board, and now we're going to assign him all the tasks that he gets to. But no, thanks, Will. It sounds like you had a good time. Reminder that you can, if you're going somewhere fun, please take a picture or take us with you and send it to Kitty. Rotary Law and Disorder is back this week. For our guests, this is my little weekly shtick where I point out the humorous side of the legal system of my chosen profession. So this week we are in Sunland Park, New Mexico in 2011. Sunland Park, like any other city, was working with some contractors, I think on some developments, and I thought this was appropriate for Caliber here today. So Synthesis Plus, an architectural design firm from California, sued the city of Sunland Park for over $1 million for work performed under 9 contracts with the city on certain projects. They, of course, had copies of these 9 contracts that were all signed, and that's not the interesting part of this case. The interesting part was the city's defense. The city's defense was that the contracts were invalid because they were never approved by the city council. And why were they not approved by the city council? Because the mayor adamantly stated that he was drunk when he signed them. That's right, he testified in his deposition that he went out with executives from Synthesis Plus, numerous company executives, after hours, and had way too much to drink, so much so that his sister had to pick him up. He testified that the company executives put the contracts in front of him after 2 to 3 hours of heavy drinking, and he didn't know what he was signing. Quote from his deposition, "Not exactly the best time to be reviewing legal documents." And I would agree with that statement. So I could not find the actual results of the case. This was all when it was initially filed, so I'm presuming they settled out of court. But I just wanted to remind everyone at all those Christmas parties this time of year when you're having some cocktails, it's not exactly the best time to be reviewing legal documents. So if someone slips a contract in front of you, don't sign it, take it home. So today, before we get to our speaker, we're excited to announce 2 more newer members as we get caught up in announcing new members to our club. So we're going to introduce both Callie Baum and Logan Kraus. And having learned from announcing 2 people at the same meeting before, I'm going to not invite them both up at the same time, so one of them stands here awkwardly for 10 minutes. So we'll start with Kelly. Kelly, would you like to join me up here? So as she's approaching the podium, Kelly has lived in 14 towns across 11 states, following a childhood shaped by her father's work as an exploration geologist, which sounds very interesting. She earned her PhD in art history after studying at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and the University of Delaware. Her career in the arts took her to 4 other museums, including the Metropolitan Museum of Art, before she joined the Des Moines Art Center in May of 2023, where she is the director and CEO. She lives in the Waterbury neighborhood with her husband, an artist and teacher, their child, and 2 dogs. When not at the Art Center, Kelly enjoys yoga, hiking in Browns Woods, and exploring the East Village. So, as is tradition, we asked Kelly our 5 questions. You've got a free day. What would we find you doing? And consistent with her biography, she said she'd be hiking in the woods with her dog, Max. Next, we asked her where in the world have you traveled to and can't wait to go back. Seoul, South Korea is where Kelly has been and can't wait to go back to. The best piece of advice you've ever been given. Take the risk. Short and sweet. I like that. What talent or skill do you possess that might surprise or delight people? Kelly says, as most of us do, she's not very interesting and doesn't have a talent or skill that would surprise anyone. But she did have a job many years ago, she states, that might surprise some people. The summer after her last year of high school in Anchorage, Alaska, she worked as a tour guide on the Alaska Railroad. It was one of her favorite jobs, even to this day. So, we of course will have Kelly answer this last question from the microphone, but you're joining Rotary, Kelly. What can't you wait to tell your family and friends about our organization?
Sure. Do you mind if I keep
Yep.
my, to remind myself?
Yeah, your biography.
Let's see, or how I answered that last question.
It's right here.
Is it, last, 10 years ago?
Make sure Tim didn't write it.
So you have to answer this one
Oh,
from the podium.
I
Yeah,
have
so
to
you
be
just tell us.
spontaneous.
Yeah, you have to be spontaneous.
I thought I sent this to Kitty.
Yeah.
So I thought about this. There is so much to admire about Rotary, and I recognize that Rotary is an international club, and so what defines Rotary in Des Moines likely defines Rotary elsewhere in the world. However, I have learned after the last several months of participating in meetings and being in conversation with all of you, that this particular club represents and exemplifies an ethic, a commitment to service, philanthropy, and generosity that I associate with the Midwest. I had not worked or lived in the Midwest until I moved here to serve as a CEO of the Art Center, and I was struck instantly by the generosity of spirit, by the commitment to giving back in this particular region, and it's very true of Rotary Club as well. So,
Thank you.
thank you
Appreciate
for
it.
having me.
Yeah. Thank you, Kelly. It's great to have you as part of our club. Thank you for those kind words. Next, I'm pleased to introduce Logan Kraus, another one of our newer members. Logan is originally from the Cedar Rapids area. You're gonna get blinded if you stand.
I know.
He received his undergraduate degree in history from the University of Northern Iowa and then attended law school at the University of Iowa. He is now a shareholder of the Denton's Davis Brown law firm. Logan's wife is also an attorney, and they live here in town with their 4-year-old daughter. So, same questions again as we always ask. You've got a free day. What would we find you doing? And Logan says he'd be practicing woodworking in his spare time, and lately he's been making a lot of furniture. Interesting. Where in the world have you traveled to and can't wait to go back? His short answer is Madrid. And I checked with Logan before lunch. That's Madrid, Spain. It's not Madrid, it's not Madrid, Iowa, although they're comparable.
Never been, heard it's great.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of people that can't wait to go back to go to Madrid. What's the best piece of advice that you've ever been given? Read more books. I like that.
My mom was a librarian. Heard that every day.
What talent or skill do you possess that might surprise or delight people? Logan can play the piano and violin, as he says, quite well, and the harmonica very, very poorly. And then, of course, Logan, you are joining the Rotary Club of Des Moines. What can't you wait to tell your friends and family about our organization? I'll have you answer from the podium.
So I guess this is sort of a belated answer because I joined back in June or July. So it's really more of what I've already been telling my friends and family, which is really just like how impressive this club is. A lot of like my family members don't really know much about it, and I tell them the type of charity work that you guys do, the speakers that you're able to get, and you know the types of people that are members here, and just the history of the club, how long it's been going. They're always really impressed. You know, I think Des Moines kind of punches above its weight class with the sort of people that we're able to get here, and you know, sort of thing people ask me about. It's just been great to sort of be a part of this and be able to share that with friends and family.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Logan. Excited to have you as a new member as well. Like you said, even though we've already gotten to know you a little bit. All right, so for today's program, we will have our own Bill Wright will be a moderator for our guest, Megan Phillips, the CEO of Caliber Company. So I'm sure Bill will have an introduction here and get this thing started. So I'll invite Bill and Megan up to the podium.
All right, I'll kick things off here. I am just thrilled to we're doing this kind of in a conversation interview format. I'm thrilled to have Megan Phillips with us today. Megan is the Chief Executive Officer of Caliber Company. Caliber is based in Ankeny. I can't stress, as a guy that's been doing real estate for 33 years, the quality of projects that Caliber does is just, they're a preeminent builder, commercial builder, multifamily apartment builder, single family builder. They set the standard in the Des Moines market. And I think you're going to see through leadership like this gal sitting to my right why they're leader. Megan is relatively new to Caliber. You'll hear more about that here in a few moments. But Megan had just a distinguished career for almost 19 years at Principal. She was finishing as Managing Director of Portfolio Management at Principal Asset Management. For those of you that don't know a lot about Principal, when it comes to investment real estate, they have very little in Des Moines. Maybe 801 grand, she probably knows better than I do, but 801 grand might be about it. But they are extremely, for a lot of valued investors and clients, they are extremely active on the coasts in the southern US, and a majority of the work they do is actually outside Des Moines. And I'm telling you, Megan's, she had a big job. That was a very big job and very impressive. A little bit personally about Megan before we get started. She is a lover of tennis. That sits very well with me also. So we've talked about tennis several times. Her husband, Cy, is very active, owns his own residential real estate company, brokerage company, very active, and she has 4 lovely children. She is also a Drake grad and also got her MBA from the University of Iowa in Iowa City, for you Hawkeye fans. She actually married a Hawkeye quarterback, so that's very interesting too. Before we get started, my final story is, which hopefully you'll find a little amusing, is I first met Megan. I mean, I knew who Megan was, but I first met her for real maybe 2 or 3 years ago. We were both on a panel at the Iowa Commercial Real Estate Association. They do an update on the various markets, and I can promise you that no one remembers I was on that panel. Not one bit. And so she absolutely stole the show, and I'm super excited when I was asked to be part of this today. Super excited to have her here. So anything you want to kick off before I go into interviews?
You're so kind. I feel like we've now overpromised and I
It's true.
will underdeliver.
No, it's all true. Okay, so we're going to do this in an interview format today, and Megan and I already kind of went over some of these questions, so I don't think there'll be any, most of them will be soft tosses to you. Megan, you started at Principal in January of 2005, had an 18-plus year career at Principal, where you went from an acquisitions analyst position all the way to a managing director position in portfolio management. It was a very impressive ascent, so why the change to Caliber?
So my first response to Bill was, it was truly the most difficult decision I've made in my entire adult life. And I don't say that lightly to this group because one of my former team members is in the room today, Ellen Bennett. I had this neighbor 2 doors down, and I didn't know him particularly well. I knew him as a really nice neighbor, but we all had little kids, and I think he generally knew that I worked at Principal. I could have been in retirement or insurance or anything he didn't really know, and I thought he was a single family home builder. And in the depths of COVID, very, very early, probably 3rd week of March 2020, I think I was legitimately working 18 hours a day. We were gating an open-end fund for the second time in 42 years. You can imagine how well that goes over with major institutional investors. And Nick, my neighbor 2 doors down, had literally snuck over. Do you remember you weren't supposed to engage in any kind of interaction with somebody who wasn't in your deliberate circle? And he and my husband were drinking Blanton's in the garage while I was working. Does this resonate for anybody else?
Yes.
And my husband comes in and he says, "Come tell us what you think. What's going on in the world?" And I was on autopilot at that moment. I started with this funnel of armchair epidemiology and went to what we thought the Fed was going to do, what we thought all kinds of various facets of response might look like, what that meant for commercial real estate. And I said one of the things we were really concerned about in our portfolio was whether or not anyone was going to pay rent on April 1. And at that time, the portfolio was more than 30% residential investment and totaled $12-ish billion. And Nick is wringing his hands. I was like, "Why are you wringing your hands?" He said, "I've got 1,200 multifamily units in town, and I'm really worried about whether or not anyone's going to pay rent. What is it that you do?" And I was like, "Well, okay, it looks like neither of us really knew what one another did." that kickstarted just a conversation. We'd share, talk about deals that were happening, maybe, hey, I saw this really interesting apartment in Dallas, you should see what they're changing, and he would send me deals. They were looking at developing City View right here downtown off of Keo Way, and I was like, why? What, townhomes in the heart of COVID. And ultimately, he came to me in 2023, and I thought he was going to say, hey, Megan, Caliber wants to start raising third-party equity dollars. And when we think about investing in real estate, most often what you would find is a developer would contribute a relatively small portion of the equity required, maybe 5 or 10%. And then you'd have a larger investor, maybe a pool of investors or a single investor that would take that other bigger stack in capital. And for almost 19 years, we represented that other big stack of capital. And Caliber had never done that. Caliber is extremely unique in that the relationships that have capitalized all of the development here across town are incredibly closely held to a level I had not seen in any of my years working across the country. And I thought Nick was going to say, hey, come run this. Let's open this up. Let's start doing some joint ventures, and you can come lead this group. And I walked into lunch ready to say, hey, thank you, no thank you. I love my path. I love the team that I'm on. I love this organization. I've grown up here. I'm sticking around. And instead he said, hey, I'd like you to come be the CEO. And that was a really, really big out of left field conversation. It took me a really long time to determine what it was I was gonna do, but that's why the change, and it's offered me an opportunity to get really active in Des Moines.
Megan, Caliber is a vertically integrated developer. I'm in the business and I just learned what that meant. So as CEO, can you talk about your day-to-day roles and what that exactly means?
Yeah, so Caliber was really unique, and Ellen and I could share this with the group. And you guys should ping this woman. She can give you a lot on commercial real estate. But what we mean by vertical integration is when a shop does more than one facet of a step. And so what's interesting to me about Caliber and what we saw so infrequently was Caliber starts with development. That's now what our founder and my business partner leads. Development transitions into, we have a full-scale design build general contracting firm within our walls. So that means we've got 7 architects, we've got interior design, project management, site supervision. That group will do almost $120 million of volume in the Des Moines Metro in 2025. If we build it to rent it, it goes into Caliber Property Management, which manages all of our holdings here. If we build it to sell it, it goes to Caliber Realty. We have a small, really more boutique commercial real estate side, and then a residential side that does all of our for sale representation. And then we have what many of you probably have seen around town, particularly if you live on the north side of town, which is Caliber Homes, and that's a boutique single family home builder.
The company is very diversified. Can you talk to us a little bit about some of your new developments, both the type of product and geography? I know you're very active in Ankeny and Waukee, and maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So it's been a really exciting year, and thank you, Kitty. That was absolutely perfect timing. I thought we'd bring this because it feels like a little bit of a sneak peek of what's happening, but Caliber has typically been very active in that Ankeny market, and Caliber was investing in build-for-rent townhome transactions well before that was part of the national conversation in institutional investment management. So most of the portfolio has naturally been barbell. If you're in the Windsor Heights area, you might have seen that we delivered 105 units at 63rd and University this year. That has been exceptionally well accepted within the community. We're already at 77% occupancy there, only having our first move-in in June of this year. And this is what's taking a lot of my time right now. If you're familiar with Waukee and the west side of town off of Grand Prairie Parkway, the city of Waukee has invested a tremendous amount of dollars, and we've seen really exciting new infrastructure with things like Vibrant Music Hall, the All Iowa Attack Facility, or Iowa Youth Athletic Foundation has built 2 really nationally recognized gyms out there. They bring approximately 500,000 people to Waukee in any given year. We own the 60 acres directly south of that. And so today, we are going vertical on Waukee's first Main Street. Waukee had never actually had a Main Street in its founding, so that central corridor that you see there is actually primarily in today. Those 2 retail buildings are underway. We'll deliver that first retail building here before the end of the year. We've seen tremendous pre-leasing activity. We also will build a second headquarters at the end of that. We have 180 units that just delivered out there, and here very shortly we will start construction in that far left side called Kettlestone Social, which is an exciting new entertainment, essentially venue that really caters to all of that traffic that's happening in Waukee today. So that's a great representation of the kinds of things that come across my desk, and every day ends up being a little bit different.
And I think that has a food hall, right?
Yeah, it does. It has a combination of a food hall, and then there's actually duck pin bowling, there's an arcade, there's a rooftop entertainment area, and then a very, very large exterior courtyard. Essentially, you know, if you got kids in youth sports, there is nowhere that can actively just take a team and get a team in and out. And the idea was, how can we cater to the community, add a really interesting venue that's unparalleled in our market, and also make sure that we're doing something that works really well with this neighboring gym.
Megan, so we're talking a lot about your commercial properties and stuff, but what's interesting about Caliber is you guys build single family homes. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that experience has been for you, managing people and owning that, and knowing that at principal you probably weren't building single family homes very often, so.
Yeah, no, I was not. I wasn't, we didn't invest in Des Moines. So Principal as a corporate balance sheet does have some real estate holdings here related to the general account. However, within our fund and really throughout the rest of the practice, Principal believes that there's a potential conflict of interest given the size and scale of the operation here and knowing what Principal means to Des Moines. So we actively only invested outside of Des Moines. It kept us on planes quite often. And we were not doing any single family. I actually just met with the head of Des Moines Home Builders Association last night. We've been talking about a new initiative with them. And I said, it's not healthy for me to spend too much time with the Caliber Homes team because inevitably I want to change my house. Like every single time they do, their aesthetic is just absolutely incredible. And it's such a unique group because it's run by a construction engineer, educated out of Iowa State. And so he's just really talented, and it's been a spectacular group. On the people front, I can tell you that we had an exceptionally close-knit, very high-performing team within Principal. And while the Caliber team is fantastic, it has been an entirely new experience where the investment decisions are the easiest decisions that I make on any given day. And it's the people decisions that 100% will keep me up on any given night.
Megan, when you and I had coffee to prep for this, one of the things we talked about one of my questions that I thought really very interesting to hear your perspective is, when you were doing work all across the country, I probably could have called you up and said, hey, what's going on in the Miami office market? And you'd probably, be on it. But here you are, you're back in Des Moines, and can you talk a little bit about how, what that's been like to educate yourself on a local market? Because that had to be, and I think you'll say, is one of the hardest, or one of the quickest ramp up things that you had to get used to.
So Bill is referencing the absolute heaping pile of humble pie that I got to eat. So I would often, my husband and I would drive around on weekends, and he does a lot of residential real estate investment and just generally knows what was happening in the Des Moines market. So we'd be headed somewhere and he'd offhand say like, so-and-so's doing such and such over there. And legitimately, not very proud of this, but my response would be like, oh, that is so great. Oh, how great. I'm leaving on Monday and we're gonna talk about a $350 million development in San Francisco. Like, genuinely, I thought that was great, but I was like, okay. And now I see the energy that it takes to put together a development and actually put a shovel in the ground is absolutely astounding. Once it gets going, that kinetic energy really keeps it going and you can put it together. But it is remarkable, and there are so many people in this market that are so gifted. They know absolutely, you being one of them, they know absolutely everything that is happening here. They don't just know who owns that parcel today, they know who owned that parcel 40 years ago and why the person who owns it today has it. So it's been a great ramp up for me in terms of learning and getting to know the market. It's also been an important part of learning what it means to be a CEO. I, led a large P&L. At the same time, there was somebody at Principal whose only job was to think about what medical plan we were going to select, or what date something or other should happen. And so what it really feels like is now I don't have the safety net. right? And so it's been really interesting to learn what it means to just not know all the details and to instead ensure that we have really great leadership teams and people within our organization that do know the details. I don't need to be the absolute market expert on every single piece of Des Moines land. Just need to make sure we've got that expert in-house.
We talked about you being a Drake grad and University of Iowa MBA. Can you talk to the group a little bit about when you developed your interest in real estate? Was this something that you were always passionate about, or how that kind of developed?
No, I don't think anybody is passionate about real estate unless your dad was a developer. I actually really believe that. You don't really necessarily know that it's even an option or a career path. And I had the good fortune of being an intern at the Des Moines Arts Festival back when it was still on the bridges. And I don't know if anyone in this room knew Mo Dana, but she was an absolute firecracker. She was an incredible first leader for me. And she looked at me and said, hey, you can't do, if you're in school, you've got to go to school for something that you have to have a degree to do. And if you don't want to do that, if you really want to do this, then quit wasting money and come do this, because I didn't need a degree to do it. And it was really, you guys asked for great pieces of advice. It was interesting advice that I think resonates today more than it did then when we think about the advent of AI and the job and employment market. But she set me up with Tracy Lewis, who many of you in this room may know. And she said, Tracy Lewis is an absolutely wonderful HR professional, and I want you to have lunch with him, and he's going to tell you what you should do. And I had lunch with Tracy Lewis at Court Avenue Brew Pub, and he actually did tell me exactly what to do. He said, I think you need to go be in the real estate group at Principal. I'm going to connect you with Margie Custis, and I want you to go talk to her. And that resulted in me taking an internship at Principal in January of 2005. I was unremarkable, let me be clear. I was in the right place at the right time. Real estate was up and to the right on a tear, and they needed people to underwrite transactions, and I loved it. I was just bit by the bug. And so I was supposed to be there January of 2005 through August and go back and finish my senior year at the University of Iowa. And in March, I was offered the opportunity to stay full-time as an analyst, and they actually paid for me to finish school at Drake. I wouldn't change that path for the world, but I also would not let my kids skip their senior year of college.
Megan, you've gotten to just go, all areas of the U.S., see so many great markets, and this is a question I think we'll all be interested in hearing your perspective. Is, what have you, in seeing other markets, what do you wish for Des Moines? Where do you, in terms of development, where have you seen mistakes in other markets, and what are your top wishes for Des Moines, where you'd like to see the community go?
This is the answer I don't think you all expect today. Des Moines has got a problem. And what I wish for Des Moines is that we'd all start talking about it and commit to finding a way to solve it. I think a lot of people don't realize today that in 2021, 2022, and 2023, our market created between 10 and 12,000 jobs a year. That is a great pace for Des Moines in terms of investment, in terms of household income, spending, and job creation. We lost 3,000 jobs last year, and we're on pace to lose jobs again this year. And those great titans of industry that really built what it is we enjoy today are largely absent. Wells Fargo, somebody in this room may work for Wells Fargo. The reality is that Wells Fargo as a mothership does not care about Des Moines. And there are a lot of other organizations that have been a big part of our fabric that are no longer part of our future forward. And I think it's a multifaceted problem with a multifaceted solution. It's going to take partnership with our legislature. It's going to take partnership with our local businesses. It's going to take more conversation and more recognition of the problem that's happening, because I don't know if any of you are aware, but our single family housing market today looks exactly like what it looked like in the great financial crisis. We're talking 2008 levels of home transactions right now. So we may enjoy a level of price appreciation that makes some of that feel better because we have low interest rates and feel relatively wealthy from a equity perspective. The reality of what's happening, the lack of transactions and the lack of demand are going to hamper us. And if we don't get on track, we aren't ever going to look like an Austin or a Denver. And we were really, really early to markets like Austin and Denver. We were investing in the fund in Austin in the late 90s, pre-me, and then really put a lot of dollars into Austin starting in 2005. And there are some really unique differences, like the presence of a major research institution. So maybe, I don't pretend to have these answers by any stretch, but maybe one of our answers is finding a way to make it feel a lot more like Iowa State and the University of Iowa have a much bigger presence in Des Moines, so that we keep some of that capital and we generate some of that potential job growth. We're not going to win on the weather, right? Like Denver's got us on mountains, Austin has us on weather, so we've got to find a way to win.
Megan, a couple more questions and we'll open up for questions from the audience, but tell us about your family and what you like to do in your spare time.
That is actually a hilarious question from the second part, but I have 4 children. They are an absolute dream, really. They are 8, 10, 12, and 14. Scott knew me when they were real estate returns. They were 1, 3, 5, and 7. I love telling people that. We're in that really dreamy phase of life where even the 14-year-old still thinks we're kind of okay, and the little guy is asking Santa for the power to moonwalk. So it's just, they're just so fun. And I came by my love of tennis, honestly, because our kids love tennis. I am actually terrible, and if I try to swing a racket, my boy sounds like a McKinsey consultant, and it's like, can I tell you what I'm seeing? Please don't. So the second half of that is I don't have free time. Like, that's not a hobby. There's no hobbies here. Yeah, not happening.
Understood. Final question, then we'll open it up. You are at Rotary this afternoon, and I think can you maybe speak a little bit about just what not-for-profit organizations are dear to your heart?
Yeah, of course. So I grew up in an organization that valued philanthropy first and foremost, and you learned early that you had responsibilities to our community. So Cy and I have been really active in United Way, largely because of that leadership from principal. And that has led us to really define our philanthropy around kids. So we target anything that we're doing for kids that are at risk, kids that are at sick, or kids that are underserved and needing better education opportunities. From a caliber perspective, I'm really pleased to tell you all that we launched a new initiative in 2025 called Caliber Gives Back. There are 3 prongs of that approach. We were able to utilize a model where we took high-performing, high-potential team members that didn't have formal leadership obligations in our company. We identified them and we brought them into this Caliber Gives Back model as leaders. So a handful of them are overseeing an allocation committee. They have laid out an entire rubric. They have laid out a mission statement and core values for how we as an organization think about giving. They partner with our volunteer team. So our volunteer team really transmits, we give everyone 8 hours of volunteer time off on an annual basis. But for instance, I was just on a Habitat for Humanity site with our team. That was super fun because I was there with a construction engineer and one of our site superintendents, and they were running basically like a master class for everyone on site, including myself. And then on the personal front, very accidentally, we started a nonprofit in 2017 called the Iowa Wave Shirt. Our second daughter, she's 12 today, she's coming home from a really big tennis tournament right now. She contracted E. coli swimming in Lake Panorama, and she developed a follow-on condition called hemolytic uremic syndrome, where essentially your body destroys its own red blood cells, and we almost lost her. It was 50-50 on whether or not she would live. And when we got to Mercy downtown, I heard one of the scariest things that I think I've ever heard in my life, and that was the head of the ER saying, we can't care for her here. We're waiting to hear back from her care team in Iowa City. We just don't know if we're life flighting her or we're taking the ambulance. Long story short, she is a really vibrant, incredibly healthy 12-year-old girl, and we credit that to the time that she spent at University of Iowa Stead Family Children's Hospital. And in the fall of 2017, you know that they started the WAVE, and we just had a baby. Jack was a few months old and watched that WAVE at home in our basement. And I said, somebody is going to capitalize on this. We'd been home for almost exactly a year. I said, nobody should benefit from this except for those kids. Nobody should make money from the WAVE. Somebody should just sell t-shirts and then donate all of the money back to the hospital. And my husband was like, you should sell t-shirts. I was like, I just went back to work from maternity leave. I'm gone like every other week, and now we should start a nonprofit. But together with 2 other families, Jason and Lori Willis and John and Brooke Michelson, and our families, because those kids definitely pitch in too, we have now been able to donate, not our money, community money from supporters just like you, almost $3 million to Stead Family Children's Hospital. Yeah. It's really fun.
That's a great way to finish the questions here. So we do have some extra time. I'll open it up for any questions. Yeah.
Do you know if other cities the size of Des Moines around the country are gaining jobs, or if all cities are losing them due to AI?
I can tell you, I don't know that I have a great answer for exactly the causal, effect of this, but I can tell you that Iowa was one of only 2 states to lose jobs year over year through May of 2025. And that reporting is a little bit delayed because it should have come out, then we had the government shutdown. So we're kind of eagerly anticipating those last results to come out, both for the Des Moines Metro and more broadly. But we did a market study at Caliber. We looked at Kansas City, we looked at Omaha, we looked at Minneapolis, and we're about to actually look at Iowa City and Sioux Falls as well. And I can tell you what we're seeing is not the same story. Our state is so very dependent on ag. As you all know, ag is in a material recession, and that, I think, is the #1 cause of our job losses in this state today. Whether or not that accelerates now due to what we know is coming in AI is also a big part of this question.
Other questions? You bet.
What do you see on the, because obviously with the open jobs, people need places to live. And on the, you see a lot of new developments come online and they'll say they are affordable, but then you see the rents for them and they're definitely not affordable for somebody making minimum wage that hasn't changed in however many decades. What's the solution to house workers to make them be able to stay here and work versus moving to a lower income area?
That's a tough one.
That's again a multifaceted problem with multifaceted solutions. What we saw often in other markets is that municipalities would require some measure of affordability within any given development. So for instance, you had to cater to people making 60% of area median income. I think what maybe is a little bit underappreciated is how high area median incomes are in most of the markets where new development pencils. I'm not saying across all of Des Moines, but I'm saying where you can actually pencil development, because I can tell you it is extraordinarily difficult today to pencil development at all. You have to be a believer in a long-term hold. What we're doing right now, Nick is my business partner. The only thing Nick and I are doing right now is trying to make sure that our kids and our grandkids have a better life. It doesn't look and feel particularly great today from a consumption level of this moment entirely, but there are some opportunities. I would tell you most of what happens in Caliber's portfolio ends up being naturally affordable. So we have a townhouse development, for instance, in the northwest part of Urbandale that boundaries into Waukee schools. And those townhomes sell for approximately $235,000 or $240,000. It's among the least expensive ways to get into the Waukee school district today. The average single family home to get into the Waukee school district starts with a 4, and there are very few of them. That's a presentation I would encourage as well, is just in terms of what's really happening in our single family market. However, what's interesting, we have some of those that are available for rent as opposed to selling them. It is, if you can come up with 10% down, it's cheaper to buy them today than it is to rent them.
You certainly have the Modena spirit, I'll tell you that.
That is maybe one of the kindest things that anyone has ever said to me. I really, really loved her.
I did too. So what can be done? I've read the stats too about the jobs lost in Iowa, and I remember back in 2000, the big effort to bring in kids from Chicago. They're going to school in Chicago or wherever, and make sure they came back to Iowa and do all this crazy kind of stuff. And So what can we do? Are you talking to the Debbie Durhams and the governor and people like that?
I am. So actually, I'm having coffee with Dan Houston in the morning because I think he's a guy that could be really powerful in an effort like this. And it turns out he's got a little more time on his hands now. I recently had lunch with Matt McKinney, and Matt's a really interesting voice because he often lobbies for some of the groups that are potentially eliminating some of those earlier jobs. However, he has great relationships with a lot of our legislators, and I know that they are interested in having that conversation. So I think part of what I feel my mission is today is making sure people know. Because I was just at a retirement party last week, and I was with a former colleague, and understandably, he doesn't have a great grasp of what's happening necessarily in our market, because he's always focused outside of our market. He said, man, Des Moines is just going gangbusters. I said, no, it's not. We gotta start looking at the data together and recognizing that it really isn't. And I think too, there are a lot of phenomenal organizations that just aren't necessarily looking at themselves as those next titans of industry, and I think it's time to go knock on their doors and start talking to them about that.
Any other questions? Probably time for one more.
Hey, Megan, can you talk about the other end of the spectrum in terms of the high end, in terms of either the multifamily ownership, condos, that kind of stuff, in the Des Moines area? I think you've got some of those properties.
I can talk a little bit about this. So I would maybe clarify, you're probably thinking of 595 Tower, which is just off of 60th Street in West Des Moines. And that is one of very few third-party jobs that we do. About 70% of our book of business in the construction company is internal only. We were hired by DRA Properties out of Ankeny to build out the interiors for a condo project that they had already designed fully. Actually, it's just above where Bill office is. So we have those listed for sale right now. It is very thin air in terms of the pricing that you need for those condos. What I think is most interesting about that, so you guys can Google 595 Tower if you're not familiar with the condos that we're speaking about. They're absolutely incredible. They are among the highest finish level I've ever seen in our market. We toured projects in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and Overland Park, Kansas City. Very easy comparisons. I would have thought west side of Des Moines would trade well ahead of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, had I not gone there myself and seen what was happening. But you're seeing condo projects in those markets trade for over $1,000 a foot. And that is realistically that's what it takes to build that building all day long. What we're looking at Caliber right now, we are marketing that project. We will start next spring on a for sale condo project that really goes to that thesis, Scott, but at a different price point. So we'll have 28 condo units just off of Jordan Creek Parkway, backing to this beautiful tree-lined ravine, really for the people that want to be able to lock and leave in Des Moines, but that want a little bit bigger footprint at a little lower price point. It's thin air, for sure.
Megan, thank you for doing this today. It was just an absolute pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Megan. That was great. Appreciate the setup and the time, Megan, and we appreciate you being here and telling us all what's going on with Caliber and sharing your insights and your expertise. Thank you very much for joining us. Upcoming speakers here at the Rotary Club of Des Moines. This is a pretty easy slide compared to most times of the year. Next week I should say, on the 18th is our annual holiday lunch. So remember, it's critical that you RSVP on time. Both you and your guests RSVP through Kitty at the office by 9 a.m. on Wednesday. So we have a proper count. We will have the vocal cords from Drake University as our holiday entertainment. I'm sure they will bring in some Christmas cheer. And a reminder, an email went out yesterday. If you didn't see it, if you haven't donated to our sort of annual holiday cheer fund for our friends here at the MC Club, today is the last day to do so. So please see Kitty before you leave with cash or check if you want to do so. And then, like I said, easy close to the year. December 25th and January 1st are both on a Thursday this year, so no meetings for Christmas or the New Year. and we will be back on January 8th, and you'll look for look for emails about that. Also, we've got our next morning fuel set up for January. Our own Graham Gillette will be our featured Rotarian, presenting at our morning fuel on Tuesday, January 20th.
It'll all be lies.
At Freedom Blend Coffee, 9 to 10 a.m. The fellowship, of course, is free, and the coffee is on you. So, another quick reminder: there is a mentor committee meeting. If you're a part of that group, after we adjourn here today, you can just follow. I think Scott, you're leading that. Scott will lead you to the northeast room over there, and you guys can have your meeting. So. Thank you, Rotary Club members, for being with us today and being a vital part of our club. Thank you to our guests. We enjoyed having you. Welcome again to Kelly and Logan. And as I say every week, stay true to the good. We are adjourned.